What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mind Something. If you're new here, my name is Jake, and I think today's episode may be the most insightful crypto mining video I have ever created. I think many of you may find this to be a paradigm shift in the way that you've looked at crypto mining in the past, and it may affect your strategy. And if it does, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so by the end of the video if you find this information helpful. So yesterday on Red Panda Mining's live stream, we were having a discussion about whether the 4060 Ti is better than a 3070, and it prompted me to engage with people in a meaningful way. And one of the comments that Cruitman made was, some of us have to sell to cover power. Now, my strategy has always been a little bit different than most. I personally pay all of my electric out of pocket, and the size of my farm I've kept pretty small specifically for that reason. I have a certain amount that I like to refer to as ECA, or electric cost average. I'm willing to spend this much on electricity per month, and I don't want to go over that. And I realize many of you don't want to pay for electricity out of your pocket, especially considering how large some of your farms are. So for that reason, I think that this information could be extremely useful to you. So in order to gather the information that I needed, I had to use a website called the Wayback Machine. Now what this website does is it takes snapshots periodically of different websites so that we can view historical data. In this particular case, we are looking at November 5th, 2022. This was a time period right after the merge where it was simply just not profitable to mine at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. In fact, you almost had to have free power in order to turn a profit. I've also taken a snapshot from a different time frame on September 26, 2023. I feel like this gives us a pretty wide gap between dates, and the amount of profit in both cases here is negative, but I think it's going to help me illustrate my point very well. All right, so I realize this chart is probably giving you information overload right now, so I'm going to explain things in detail here, but bear with me. So the first two categories here we're looking at are both the same day of November 5th, 2022, but in one scenario, we are paying for power out of pocket. In the second scenario, we are selling to cover 50% of the power. Now you may ask yourself, why are we not selling to cover 100% of the power? And that's because during this time, it was negative profitability. You wouldn't be able to sell enough because you hadn't mined enough in order to cover 100% of the power bill. So you may think, well, you're just cherry picking a specific day. Well, that's the reason we have 2 days for this example. And we could add another 100 days to this example, but I think we're going to show the same result. So to better understand this, what we're dealing with here is a variety of coins. We got 15 different coins that were the top coins to mine at that time. We've got 3090s. We've got a total of 10 3090s. You can see the power usage. You can see the kilowatt hours used per day. The price per kilowatt hour is the same in both examples at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. You've got a total to operate that rig per day. Then you've got the yield of the coin, both 1 and 2 if you're dual mining. We've got the profitability at that particular day and time. And then we've got the price of the coin in terms of fiat value today for both coins 1 and 2. So here we have the revenue. So if we've got 10 3090s and we're dual mining Ergo and Caspa and we hodled all that coin, the total revenue would be worth $111.55. But of course we need to subtract our power usage. So if you subtract $7.18 from $111 in revenue, you get $104.37 in profit. So taking into account all of these different coins, which in some cases was definitely negative even in today's fiat value, we've got an average of $46.99 a day in profit. Now the reason I'm using an average in this example is because sometimes we pick the right coins and sometimes we don't. It's a mixed bag. Maybe you're really good at picking the winners, maybe you're really bad at picking the winners. So by using 15 different coins and taking an average, I think that illustrates the point very well here. So here we have 1 month's profit, 1 year's profit, and then if we were to 3x in price or a 5x in price. Now clearly you can see that it is more lucrative to pay for power out of pocket by almost double. So I just want to reiterate what we're doing in this example here is we're reducing the yield by 50%. And that does affect the amount of power that we use. So let's make sure the math is right. So we've got half of the revenue, but then what we're doing here on the profit is we're reducing the amount of power by 50% because we're paying for half of that. In other words, even though we really did spend the same amount of money, we want to make sure that the amount of coin that we're getting is multiplied in terms of today's value of the coin. And again, we're still double in profitability if we would have paid for power out of pocket. Now, what about example 2? This is a completely different snapshot in time. We're looking at September 26, 2023, which is roughly 8 months later. And profitability was only slightly better, but in this case, you can see clearly, even though profits are not very good now compared to mining in the bear market, it is still significantly better to pay for power out of pocket than it is to sell coins to cover 50% of your power bill, let alone 100. If you were to sell enough crypto to cover 100% of your power bill in both of these examples, you'd be completely negative. Or the same is still true today. If you were to sell whatever coins are required to cover your power bill, you're going to find over and over again that if you're hodling the coins for the long term, you're obviously not going to make as much. Now, I think this may be evident to everybody. This is not revolutionary. The purpose of this video is to illustrate to you that you can make more money with half the size of the farm by paying for power out of pocket. Now, at this point, you may scratch your head. That may not make sense to you, but I'm going to break it down for you here. So, we've got 10 3090s, right? This is a pretty decent sized rig, maybe probably about average for the viewers that are watching this video. Some of you have much less, some of you have much more. But what if we were to reduce the size of this farm in half? Do you think we would outperform this farm that's twice as big, that's only selling enough to cover 50% of the power bill? Well, let's see. This was really eye-opening to me. You can see the numbers very clearly here. We still made more with half the size of the farm. And in this example, if we bought 10 3090s back then, we would have spent roughly about $15,000. They were about $1,500 a piece. If I only spent $7,500 on this rig, and I still made just as much money as someone who sold enough crypto to cover 50% of their power bill and had twice the size of the farm as me, I'm still outperforming them. Now, it's pretty close. It's neck and neck, right? But what about the other example? So in this particular case, we were negative. We were negative roughly 50 cents a day in this particular case, as opposed to positive $2.51. So if we reduce the size of this farm, we are still outperforming the farm that is twice the size, that's selling enough to cover 50% of the power bill, let alone selling enough to cover 100% of the power bill. Now, there will be an equilibrium at some point. When we get to the top of the bull run, that is the time that it makes sense to sell daily. But between now and then, it makes more sense to spend less money on your farm so that you can afford to pay for power out of pocket. Now, at this point, I realize this is going to be controversial. I'm going to get some pushback on this, and I'd love to hear it. I want to hear your feedback down in the comments. You guys are way smarter than me in most cases, and I have learned so much from you. So don't be afraid to speak up. Let me hear your opinion down in the comments. Do you think this is ludicrous? Do you think this has changed your mind on the way you look at purchasing equipment? Does it change your mind on hosting? If you've gotten any value from this video whatsoever, do me a favor, hit that like button, share it with somebody, and if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that, and I will see you on the next one.